In tonight's video, we're going to be discussing that age-old question: has my Moray eel spelled death and destruction on the inhabitants of my reef tank, much like Smog the dragon descending with beating wings and fiery breath on the residents of Lake Town? And how did Mr. Saltwater Tank get it so right so many years ago? That's right, this is part 2 of my 7th month update on the progress of my Palau Reef paludarium tank, whatever you want to call it. Tonight we're going to discuss all things fishy and coral related, but also my experiences with ink management. We're going to receive, process, mount some SBS corals, and we'll discuss some plans and concepts for the future. This is the Australian Aquarius, brought to you by... Nah, not yet, but don't worry, I'm going to keep on trying. But I do have a massive prize, a double prize to give away in the middle of this video by my other sponsor, frenzyfishfeeds.com.au, my Tasmania-based fish food sponsor. Doesn't matter if you're fresh, doesn't matter if you're salt. Stay tuned to the middle of the video and you'll find out how to win a massive fish food giveaway. Now, it was 7 months ago that I originally added Monster to Palau Reef. Contrary to what most people think, Monster is not a honeycomb or tessellata moray. He's a white spot of moray, a Gymnothorax isingtina. I've had Monster in my care for around 3 years now, and he has always been kept with fish. Originally, Monster was kept with some Disparanthius when he was younger, and then he moved into my 2,000 litre estuary aquarium in the company of a great variety of other fishes. So I thought it was pretty safe to introduce him to Palau Reef. Actually, Palau Reef was kind of built specifically with Monster in mind. But what I hadn't accounted for was the possible increase in his metabolism that's come with living in the warmer waters of this aquarium. You see, Monster's previous aquarium, which was this, what's now becoming freshwater aquarium, ran between 21 degrees and 26 degrees all year round. Palau Reef stays steady between 25 and 26 degrees all year round. And what I didn't really account for, and I know this might seem a little bit silly, is the increase in metabolism and potential predatory behaviour that comes with an increase of temperature. 2 days after adding Monster, I lost 2 fish. My male birdnose wrasse and my male gaymard cory wrasse, which were both long-term inhabitants of mine, disappeared. But just like the quiet time experienced by the folk of Lake Town as Smog the dragon lay slumbering on his mountain of gold beneath the misty mountains, peace resided in Palau Reef for the next, say, 5 months. You see, Monster and I developed a bit of an understanding, and it starts when I feed my fish at lunchtime. The beauty about living at home, or working at home I should say, is that I can feed my fish a lot, and I need to do that when I'm keeping butterfly fish and also I'm managing a marine ick infestation in my aquarium. You can see how much of my DIY homemade seafood mix I fed to the tank previously, and you can see that Monster came out of hiding and here he has come again. When he does that, our understanding is that I absolutely must feed him. I'm just going to scent the water up in the aquarium to get him out. Oh, here he comes already. So he's clearly very hungry. There's one. This is the tentacle end or the head end of the squid. Sometimes he completely refuses this end and wants the other half. Sometimes, as you can see right now, he's clearly hungry and will take anything. It's a little bit difficult with this individual Moray because he is a bit unpredictable in his feeding habits. But I'm glad to see that his appetite is back. He's a gorgeous fish. An absolutely gorgeous fish. And it looks like he's had enough because he's off to bed. Now, if I don't do that, I risk coming out the next morning and finding one of my fish with a scratch or a cut, which is, well, let's face it, it's a sign of a nocturnal assault. This understanding, this Dr. Doodle experience between man and fish was reassuring in a way, until, well, let's face it, Monster became a little bit difficult. Not in aggression, in his feeding habits. You see, the last month or so, he would come out quite readily and spend the day swimming actively through the tank at fish feeding time. He's obviously smelling the seafood, but yet he would not take his dinner that night. And by dinner, I mean cephalopod. He wouldn't take his big squid, he wouldn't take his small squid. He wouldn't take his octopus, he wouldn't take his cuttlefish. He wouldn't take anything, and that was quite frustrating and worrying to me until my black-barred male wrasse disappeared. I feel like his erratic feeding behaviour correlates with the onset of winter time in Australia. And although the temperatures in Palau Reef remain at 25 to 26 degrees, there is a difference in day length. And this shed experiences that, the fish in this shed experiences that because of two skylights up in the roof. When I say skylights, I mean complete panels of roofing material removed and replaced by polycarbonate clear roof sheeting. So there's obviously an awareness by the fish that winter is here. And I do believe that has what's contributed to Monster's erratic feeding. And now there's only two wrasse left, which is my pair of blunt-headed or two-tone wrasse. Another thalassoma. That's the male just swooping around just there. And of course, the female. You see, wrasse, when they're tucked into their bed at night time, are really, really sedentary. They don't want to move. I've seen this when I've been out spotlighting at night time. Those in the closely related parrotfish, which secrete this mucousy cocoon to sleep in, they really stay tucked up, and that makes them a very easy target for a nocturnal hunting moray. And that might explain the reason why the wrasse are the target of his nocturnal predation. Other fish, such as butterfly fish, well, they're just a lot more nocturnal in their habits anyhow. So it would be quite easy for them to spot Monster with the aid of one of my night lights and see him coming and get out of the way, whereas the wrasse, well, they're an easy target. And now a word from our sponsor, frenzyfishfeeds.com.au, not only for marine fish, but also for freshwater, goldfish, native fish, cichlids, whatever you've got, these guys can feed it. Hello, Reggie boy, and also Reggie quite likes these as well. I'm gonna have a world of pain when it comes to reading the comments tonight, aren't I? To help celebrate the fact that I've finally got an update out on Palau Reef, Frenzy have very generously donated 2 prizes to give away. 2 packs, 2 1.5 kilo prize packs of different fish foods to suit your needs. Doesn't matter if you're a saltwater keeper, a freshwater keeper, or a brackish water keeper in between, you can have a mixed prize up to 1.5 kilos come to your door just by answering a very small question. What is a display aquarium or paludarium, salt or fresh, that you have or you intend to do or would like to do? But I want more than just that. I'm looking for some really inspiring ideas, and don't worry, I'm not going to steal them. But my 3 C's of aquascaping. I want to know what your concept is. I want to know what the composition is. And I want to know how you're going to get creative. What plants, what animals, what coral, what hardscape materials you intend to use. Pop your display idea with your 3 C's down in the comments down below. And in the next video, I'll choose 2 lucky winners of the Frenzy Fish Feed giveaway. So I guess the big question remains, what am I going to do about Monster? Am I going to keep Monster in Palau Reef? And I understand that many of you might be out there judging me for including a predator in a community style tank. But one thing I'd like to remind you is that without doing these sorts of experiments, our hobby doesn't evolve. And I'm sure there are many of you that have been to public aquaria and witnessed nurse sharks, grey nurse sharks, and other sharks being housed with a great variety of pelagic and reef fish. Predators get lazy in captivity. And seeing as I'm all about display and the combination of different sized fish, yes, for the time being, I am going to keep Monster in this aquarium, especially considering my advice for those that are wishing to keep any predator in an aquarium with potential prey is to closely observe your individual fish and observe it for its behavior. All fish are different, including moray eels. Feed them, feed them, feed them whenever they want it. And keep a night light on so that other fish can have a bit of a heads up that a potential predator is on the prowl. It's a little bit tricky discussing fish in the evening because fish know their habits, they have their routine, they have their ritual, and they think they want to go to bed. So let's get out some frozen green lip mussels. This is my 5th feeding for the day, and see if we can entice some fish activity out the front here. I just get a pair of old pliers, I don't thaw them out, crack the shell such as that, and just drop them straight in. And the butterfly fish, in fact all fish, absolutely go nuts for these frozen green lip mussels, and it just helps that grazing behaviour that they need. So I've had a few additions to Palau Reef and a few losses, as I've already mentioned. The additions have come from mostly me collecting my own fish. Basically around New Year's Day, I managed to collect myself a Watanabe angelfish, that female just there, amongst oysters and floating casuarina leaves in a local river. After that, I collected this Klein's butterfly fish. I've collected a juvenile vagabond butterfly fish, as well as a teardrop sleeper goby. And he lives underneath that rock just there and comes out and does his sand sifting activities during the day. Funnily enough, I've gone back completely on a previous video I made, which included the sleeper gobies in a group of fish that should not be kept in captivity. I caught that sleeper goby and brought it home on purpose because I wanted to experience for myself in this sized aquarium, could he sustain on the sand bed without me directly feeding him? Well, he doesn't feed from any seafood I put in there, but he does like to suck on the Frenzy Fish Feed 6mm pellets, which is something I also experienced with my twin spot gobies. More on that in a future video. Other fish that I have in the tank, I purchased a Coral Beauty angelfish, which is doing quite well. And I was gifted a group of flagtails from a 6-foot aquarium where they were just growing a little bit too big. This Casmira snapper, this 4-line snapper, was the last of the new fish to go into the tank. One that I fished personally when out microfishing at South Solitary Island with a mate. And he wasn't destined for Palau Reef. He was destined to go into my Gold Coast Seaway aquarium where I have a 5-line snapper along with a finger mark snapper and a very juvenile mangrove jack. But I thought he might hang out nicely with the 5-line snapper because they do so in nature. Well, that wasn't the case. He got pretty beaten up. I observed him for a day, I pulled him on the second day, and I decided to put him into Palau Reef. I was a little bit concerned that obviously a snapper, they're a bit predatory, and I do have some smaller damsels and smaller butterflies, but he was in a stress state. And that brings me on to how I'm managing marine ick in this aquarium, because I'm in the middle of an ick outbreak. To do so, I run an extremely large Pentair UV sterilizer, which is just located here. Yep, it's on. And I fine tune the flow coming out of that UV sterilizer to make sure that it's slow enough to get adequate irradiation of the parasites. Obviously a faster flow, there's less irradiation. That's much better for controlling waterborne algae, but you do need that slower flow for parasites. I also feed my fish a lot. I'm a big believer that fish constantly graze in the wild. I see it all the time. They are constantly eating, and I really don't like when I hear people say you're feeding your fish too much just because they're trying to maintain scarcity of nitrate and phosphate in the water for their corals. So I feed a lot, and by a lot, I mean a minimum of 5 times a day, a combination of the Frenzy fish feed pellets in the morning, nori, my frozen seafood flat packs, as well as the greenlet mussels. And of course, I also add the squid and the octopus like you've seen me do for Monster. And one of the other things that's really important when it comes to managing ick in your aquarium is to maintain a stress-free environment. Let's use this 4-line snapper behind me as a prime example. It was clearly stressed when I put it in this tank because I had taken it from my my Gold Coast Seaway aquarium where it had been bashed up. And I'd also just recently fished it out of the ocean. It was suffering stress, so it was the most likely candidate to be infected and infested by the parasite marine ick. Its immune system was compromised, and the ick has had a chance to proliferate a little bit more than what it might have otherwise. The trouble is when there's a stressor in the aquarium in general, such as this fish, it sets off a chain reaction where the parasite proliferates a lot faster and with a lot more vigor compared to a situation where it's just normal harmony and the tank's all fine. And what that means is there's a tendency for other fish in the aquarium to also break out in white spot. And that's what's happened in my aquarium. It tends to happen predominantly with the butterfly fish, which seem to have a predisposition to white spot. In particular, my dusky butterfly fish, which are the darker black ones with the orange snouts, and also my clown tang. Funnily enough, the one that brought the parasite into my tanks in the first instance, which is the Pacific blue tang, there he goes there, is the one that's least affected now. Because I have noticed that fish do develop a degree of resistance. I'm not sure about immunity, but resistance to the parasite over time. Now, it'd be quite easy to freak out, and again, you might be judging me now, but if you're going to manage ick, or any other parasite for that matter, in your aquarium, you have to accept that you're going to see the parasite as an outbreak at some stage. It's going to happen. And so you have to be prepared for that and stay true. Obviously, I could strip the whole tank down, pull out all the fish, treat them all, leave the tank to go fallow for 70 or 90 days or whatever it is now. Humblefish.com is a fantastic resource for learning about parasitic infections in fish. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay true to my pathway, and I am going to make sure my UV sterilizer globe is fresh, which it is. I'm not going to add any more fish to this aquarium for the time being, and I'm going to feed, and feed my fish. Good quality food. I've got 3 species of damsel that regularly spawn and 1 species of wrasse. The wrasse you can probably see zipping around sometimes. It's my blunt-headed wrasse pair, my 2-tone wrasse. Hopefully Monster won't get those guys. Every now and then they will rise to the surface of the aquarium, and they, just like the males try and do now, and they'll release their gametes, and the eggs and the sperm will flow off along the surface. They always do it in the evening time. I think having a deeper tank is particularly beneficial to get wrasse to spawn. Every now and then my pair of black and white humbugs will spawn. But interestingly, they will always have a domestic dispute beforehand. And then, well, they'll kiss and make up. They keep to themselves, they don't bother anybody else. And I really love my black and white my humbugs. I really love my humbugs. My blue-green chromis spawn almost continually on the back wall of the aquarium. The males, I've got 3 males out of a group of 8, and they're pretty easy to pick because in spawning mode, the rear half of their body darkens, the caudal, anal, and dorsal fins get some yellow coloration to them, and they will come out, they'll try and swoop around and encourage a female back to the rear of the aquarium, encourage her to lay her eggs. They'll fertilise those eggs, and then they'll hurry her away again. They also spend a fair bit of time having to shoo away the butterfly fish that like to graze the eggs off the rear of the aquarium. The other fish to spawn quite frequently are my scissortail sergeant majors, and currently down the very back corner where the island structure meets the rear wall, there's a whole nest of eggs on the back, and there's a pair back there defending them against marauding silver scats, which I must admit, those guys have grown pretty big, haven't they? It's just a really nice feeling having fish spawn, despite the challenges that I do have. Unfortunately, I have lost a couple of fish. You may remember me describing how this beautiful damselfish that I collected myself, this is Chrysiptera flavipinus, oh there's a little vagabond, had a really intense dislike for my male blue devil. Really roughed him up, and the blue devil couldn't recover. So I did lose my blue devil damselfish male. So it just goes to show that really you can only have one male damsel of that, well that's a different species of that genus in an aquarium, even one that's 12 foot long. The other loss I had was extremely recently. I had 3 convict tanks in this aquarium, and they each had their own, I guess you should say territory. I had one convict living down here, one in the middle, and one down this end. Well, 2 of them decided that they wanted to pick on the third, bash him up. I separated him out to the sump. However, he didn't make it. And that's a situation where these 3 fish have been living together for about 4 years now. I collected all 3 at the same time as tiny juveniles in a rock pool at night time with the old head torch on. And they've lived together the entire time. I do not know what made them turn, but they did, and now there's only 2. And that brings us to, how did Mr. Saltwater Tank get it so right so long ago? What on earth do I mean by that? Well, Mr. Saltwater Tank, I'm pretty sure he's still going, probably about 15 years ago, had a video out about knowing your tank personality. And what he meant by that was, if you can reflect upon your personality, your life, and the kind of life that you live, that might be your work-life balance, your family life, and I'm guessing also probably your finances come into it, then if you can match the tank that best suits you, you're going to have the most enjoyable experience in this hobby. I always knew I want to have a soft coral dominated tank. I've got an extreme soft spot for soft corals, in particular leather corals. I started the stocking with a variety of soft corals I already had, such as some of the Sinularias and Sarcophytons, and then I went on to a little bit of a shopping journey to visit Anya at Galleria Aquatica and bring home some starter SPS corals. Let's see how they're going. At the time, I made the statement that I believe you should purchase more than one of the same coral, such as these 1, 2, 3 green Possilopora, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 green Dallas, although I'm not exactly sure why that one, which is growing so well, is browned out a little. And that 1 and 2 purple Postlepora at the top. Not to mention that Pavona cactus, that Pavona cactus, that Pavona cactus, that Pavona cactus, those Pavona cactuses. You see, my idea is that if you can plant multiples of the same coral in close proximity, within, you know, a year, year and a half, they'll grow together, they'll form a super colony, and you'll have a bigger impact faster, which is just a bit nicer in the old mine. It makes you feel just that little bit better. Also, since then, I've brought home some nice chocolate coloured gorgonians, an array of other singularias, such as, well, I think they're now called sclerophytons. This one here perpetually wants to stay closed up and develop algae on him, so I'll probably have to move him. And some larger pieces of Acropora Dallas, which are doing really, really well. So my concept is pretty clear. I'm looking to blend the soft corals down the banks of the rockwork and then have the green Dallas acro primarily filling up a lot of the space as a contrast in texture and colour. I don't like hot colours in my aquarium. Maybe that's a hangover from freshwater days. I like cool colours. So by that I mean green, I mean blue, mauve, violet, cream. And that's the colour scheme I'm going to go with. You won't see me putting any rainbow Monties or bright red Monty caps in this aquarium. Just recently a friend of mine shut down his tank, just temporarily, and gifted me a bunch of Acropora colonies that were wild caught. They need a little bit of care, a little bit of pruning, a little bit of preparation for the tank. So that is interesting. Yeah, look at that. So I've cut that off and all of a sudden, look here. I've got a whole cavity exposed and all of a sudden I can dig out whatever is burrowing inside this coral. It is a mussel, look. Look at that shell. Look at that cavity. And that's what was living inside of it. This whole hard mussel. Look at that. And that's in a wild colony. Look at that, look how deep down. That's how far in that mussel went. I guess that's the benefit of using aquaculture corals. I'll probably fill that up with super glue, I think, later on. They're generally all hanging in there except they have browned out. That guy back there is just starting to recover some colour. The guys back there are, well, they're hanging in there. This coral is, well, you can see between the two, browned out. This coral, which is an Acropora sarmentosa, was not actually one of the gifted ones. It was one I purchased, and it has not browned out, but bleached out, but it is on the way to recovery. It's very hard to see, I know. So the corals went from a one fish aquarium, just one fish, with fairly controlled nitrate and phosphate levels into my tank. And my tank, you can probably guess with the amount of feeding that I do, I have to work hard to maintain sensible levels of nitrate and phosphate in the water body. So my nitrate levels generally run at around 10, which is pretty good. And I'll explain to you how I managed to pull that off in part 3. But my phosphate levels, they're the ones that can climb up. I can get them to 0.1, not 0.01, 0.1 parts per million with the aid of lanthanum. However, generally they'll rise to 0.3 quite readily. And that's just because of the amount of food I put into this tank. Butterflies, the moray eel, you get the picture. And so, what have I learned? What am I taking away from that video concept back in the day from Mr. Saltwater Tank? So combined with the lack of resources, or the resources being spread thin, the fact that I feed a lot, which means my nutrient levels are elevated, and the fact that I'm a little bit erratic sometimes in my approach to technology and to dosing. I have very little interest in technology, don't you do that, but a lot more interest in biology. The coral that are best suited to my tank are the ones that survive. And just like my gardens, the corals, plants that survive are the ones that I'll proliferate more of and fill out the tank. But that's fine, because one of the keys to successful and harmonious aquascaping is repetition. So for me, I'll be repeating my soft corals and repeating my bright green Dallas aquapora, along with the Seriatoporas and Possoporas and Pavona cactus that do well throughout the whole tank. And I'll be ignoring those corals that are a little bit difficult. Don't forget to enter the Frenzy Fish Feeds giveaway, where you can win one of 2 1.5 kilo packs of fish food tailored to your specific fish keeping needs from Frenzy Fish Feeds. Thank you very much, Frenzy, for donating those 2 prizes. If you have any questions about this video, please feel free to pop them in the comments and I shall answer them. If you want me to answer any of those questions in the following video, give you a personalized look at something in particular, then feel free to do so and write down please answer in video, and I'll give you your personalized closer look. Come back next time for part 3 of my Palau Reef 7-month update. Thank you very much, Reginald. We'll be deep diving into lighting, equipment filtration, nitrate, phosphate, all that kind of boring stuff that I know that some of you guys love. Over and out for the Australian aquarist. Thank you.